There comes a moment, not in the noise of ambition or the clamor of the world, but in the gentle hush of being, perhaps when you're watching the sun dip below the horizon or lying awake at 2 a.m., with the weight of your memories pressing on your chest when a whisper emerges from within. It does not shout, it does not beg, it does not reason. It simply reminds you of a truth so profound, so clear, so liberating, that it has the power to shatter every illusion you've mistaken for reality. You are not your story. You are not the child who was overlooked. You are not the lover who was betrayed. You are not the job you lost, the diagnosis you feared, the mistake you made in 1997. You are not the divorce. You are not the abandonment. You are not even the name you've been called or the narrative you've repeated so many times it's memorized in your bones. You are none of it. You are that which remains when the story ends. You are that which watches the story unfold and still knows peace. You are that which was never born and can never die. Let that sink in. Let it soften the armor you've wrapped around your spirit. Because the greatest lie you've ever believed is that you are what happened to you. That the pain of your past is your identity. That your suffering has carved the full shape of your being. But the truth, the eternal, irrevocable, sacred truth, you are not what hurt you. You are what survived. But let me take you even deeper than survival. Let's go beyond endurance, beyond coping, beyond scars. You see, even healing becomes a trap if it's only about repairing what was broken. Because your soul, the real you, was never broken to begin with. Only the ego wounds. Only the false self clings to hurt like a flag planted on a battlefield, declaring, "This is who I am." But the battlefield was only ever a dream. The war, imagined. And the moment you awaken, truly awaken, you realize the past cannot hold you unless you reach back to carry it. So I offer you this today, not as philosophy, not as poetry, but as liberation. Give up your personal history. Not by denying it, not by forgetting it, not by numbing or escaping or covering it in positive affirmations. No, give it up by seeing through it, by recognizing it for what it is. A collection of interpretations, conditioned thoughts, inherited beliefs, and emotional echoes that no longer have any reality beyond the attention you give them. You are not obligated to drag your history behind you like a rusted anchor. You do not owe your story, your life. Let it go. Let the character dissolve. Let the identity unravel like mist under the morning sun. Because the sun has always been there, radiant, whole, untouched by the clouds that once hid its light. That sun is you, the real you. The unconditioned, unrepeatable, divine spark of consciousness that exists before time, before thought, before memory. And here's the most miraculous part. Once you stop carrying your personal history, the present moment becomes enough, more than enough. It becomes sacred. The now does not require your pain. The now does not need your resume of suffering. The now only asks for your presence full, open, alive. In this now, there are no titles, no traumas, no trophies, no blame, no shame. Only the pulse of existence, steady and silent beneath it all, reminding you you are free. But you must choose it. Freedom is not the absence of chains, it is the refusal to keep wearing them when your hands have always held the key. The mystics were never trying to teach you to become something more. They were pointing you back to what you already are. Not a story, not a persona, not an identity defined by experience, but a field of awareness, a centerless love, a witness to all things, untouched by all things. Your history only exists in your mind. It is not happening now, and if it is not happening now, it is not real unless you resurrect it with your focus. The ego thrives on this resurrection. It feeds on retelling, on re-identifying, but your soul does not. Your soul is only interested in your awakening, not your repetition. So I ask you, gently but firmly, with love, how much longer will you carry something that weighs you down when you were made to soar? How much longer will you defend the story, protect the wound, argue for your limitation? Every time you say, this is just who I am because of what happened, you reinforce a prison whose walls are built from illusion. But every time you say, I choose to be who I truly am beyond my history, you dissolve those walls. You are not what you remember. You are what is aware of remembering. And in that awareness, there is no pain, no regret, no label, only spaciousness, light, stillness. You are not the echo. You are the silence from which all sound comes. This is not just spiritual poetry. This is truth. Truth that has been spoken in temples and forests, under stars and within hearts since before written language. Truth that vibrates beneath your every thought, waiting for your surrender, not effort surrender, not striving allowing. Give up your personal history, lay it at the feet of eternity, not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. Because the presence of who you really are is too vast to be contained in a single story, a single lifetime, a single identity. And here's what happens when you let go. You return, not to a version of yourself from before the pain, but to the self that has never left, the self that watched it all unfold, the self that never needed to be healed because it was never wounded, the self that is the essence of love. You return home, home not as a place, but as a state of being, a state beyond thought, a state of grace. And from this place, you will begin to see differently. You will see others not through the lens of your pain, but through the eyes of compassion. You will no longer seek revenge through resentment, but peace through forgiveness. You will recognize that everyone has a story, and most of us are just trying to survive ours until we remember we can give it up. Not as an act of forgetting, but as an act of liberation. You don't erase your story. You transcend it. You rise above it like a bird from the ashes, wings outstretched, heart unburdened. You look down and bless it, all the pain, the joy, the confusion, and you thank it, not because it was good, but because it brought you here. And here, this moment is where eternity lives. There is a sacred wisdom that begins to arise once you have laid down the heavy garments of the past. It doesn't shout, nor does it declare itself with fanfare. It hums softly, like a river remembering its way to the ocean. It stirs in your chest like a wind through the trees, whispering, now you can begin to live. Not survive, not perform, not defend or explain. Live as the essence of your being, unfiltered, unapologetic, untouched by the smudges of history. And as you live from this essence, you begin to see with new eyes. The kind of seeing that doesn't rely on the senses, but emerges from the stillness beneath them. You begin to notice how often people speak from their wounds, how the volume of their anger masks the silence of their pain. And something extraordinary happens. Your judgments soften. You no longer react with fire, you respond with light. Because once you are free of your own story, you become free from the need to fix, fight, or prove anything. You begin to live as a presence, not a persona. There is a clarity that rises from within, like the morning sun, illuminating not only the path ahead, but the path within. You stop asking the world to validate your existence. You stop searching the eyes of others for approval. You stop chasing achievement like a substitute for peace. You realize that nothing external can define what was never external to begin with. And in that space, quiet, vast, eternal, you begin to feel your true nature emerge, not as a self-concept, but as a living experience, not something to describe, but something to become. You no longer seek truth as a destination. You are the truth, unveiled. The mind, of course, will try to return you to the familiar. It will whisper, but don't forget what they did. Don't forget what you've been through. Don't let go too easily, because the mind has built a temple out of the past, and it fears that in tearing it down, you will become nothing. But becoming nothing is the beginning of becoming everything. When the false self dissolves, there is no loss, only expansion. Like the moment a drop of water merges with the ocean and forgets it was ever separate, there is no fear in this merging. There is only the remembrance of the eternal. So you begin to walk through your life differently. You walk without the need to narrate. You walk without rehearsing comebacks or justifications. You walk as space, as openness, as awareness in motion. You stop reacting to life like a trapped animal clawing at the past and instead become a mirror to it, reflecting without distortion, embracing without grasping, releasing without resistance. And in this new way of being, time itself starts to shift. You no longer feel pulled by yesterday or pushed by tomorrow. You live in the river of now, where everything is flowing and nothing is held. You begin to notice that peace is not a result of circumstances aligning. Peace is what remains when your need to control them dissolves. You discover that love is not something to earn or negotiate. Love is what you are when the fear of unworthiness evaporates. And joy? Joy is not in the having, the getting, the achieving. Joy is in the being. It bubbles up naturally from the spaciousness of a heart that is no longer carrying the debris of 1,000 unlived moments. The soul does not keep score. It does not replay the past in high definition. It is always now, always here, always free. And so your life becomes less about becoming and more about remembering, less about striving and more about aligning, less about effort and more about surrender. You begin to touch life directly, without the veil of the story. You drink the moment like water in a desert, not because you are desperate, but because you are present. And that presence heals, not by fixing anything, but by seeing it clearly, lovingly, without agenda. You begin to realize that healing isn't about returning to a former version of yourself. It's about awakening to the self that was never wounded. This self doesn't wear a mask. It doesn't compete. It doesn't seek permission. It simply is like the sky, like light, like the rhythm of your own breath when you're finally still enough to hear it. This self is not interested in what others think of you. It's not here to impress, but to express fully, naturally, without fear. You see, giving up your personal history is not erasure, it's resurrection. It's the rising of the authentic self from beneath the rubble of who you thought you had to be. And from that resurrection comes a power that is unlike anything the ego could ever imagine. It's the power of being anchored in your own soul, immovable in truth, soft in spirit, radiant with love. You begin to see the beauty in the ordinary because you are no longer waiting for something to complete you. The sunrise becomes a miracle again, the wind on your face, a prayer. A quiet moment alone becomes communion with the infinite. And even pain, when it arises, is no longer a punishment. It is a teacher, sacred, temporary, pointing you back inward. You feel it, honor it, but you no longer become it. The story is no longer who you are. It's just something you once carried. And now your hands are open. You start to realize that forgiveness was never about the other person. It was about unclenching your fist, about setting down the burning coal you've been gripping for years, thinking it would hurt them. But it only ever scorched your own peace. And in releasing that, you don't lose power. You reclaim it. You no longer define your strength by how well you endure suffering, but by how deeply you embody presence, how softly you can stand in truth, how effortlessly you can be light in a world that forgets its own brilliance. So let go. Let go, not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up. Let go not because you've stopped caring, but because you've stopped carrying what was never yours to hold. Let go because something greater is trying to live through you, and it cannot flow through a clenched past. Release the old roles, the victim, the fighter, the abandoned, the betrayed, and make space for what is real, what is vast, what is you. You are not here to replay. You are here to remember. Remember what the trees already know, that letting go is not death. It is the way to blossom. Remember what the stars whisper each night, that even the dark is full of light waiting to be seen. You are not here to be a character in a story of pain. You are here to be the storyteller, awake, aware, and free. Let the story go, and let the soul rise. The universe does not remember your wounds. It remembers only your light. It holds no record of your betrayals, your heartbreaks, your failures. That's the domain of the mind, a mind conditioned by fear, by comparison, by repetition. The mind keeps files, the soul keeps silence. And it is in that silence where you will finally hear the truth. You were never meant to carry it all. Not the names they called you, not the moments you stumbled, not the years you spent trying to make someone stay, trying to prove you were enough, trying to be more of who you are not. You were never asked to be perfect, only to remember that perfection was never the point. Your worth was never in question except by an ego that thrives on forgetting. And as you come back into the awareness of who you truly are, you begin to loosen your grip on that heavy narrative, the one stitched together from other people's opinions, from your own moments of fear, from the echoes of a childhood still trying to be heard. But healing does not come from adding more layers. It comes from peeling them away until only love remains. Love not as an emotion, but as a state of being, as the substance of your soul, as the current beneath every breath you take when you're finally still enough to feel it. And in that stillness, something sacred happens. The need to explain yourself evaporates, the need to justify your pain, to rehash your memories like mantras of survival, it dissolves. And in its place rises a gentle clarity, not loud, not dramatic, but unwavering. A clarity that says, I am not what happened to me. I am not the role I played. I am not the one who was left, nor the one who lost. I am not a character in a painful story. I am the awareness watching it unfold, the vast presence in which all things come and go, but which itself remains untouched. The soul was never bruised by the drama of the past. It watched patiently as you wandered through those illusions, waiting only for the day you would stop searching for home and remember that you are home, that you have always been, that nothing needed fixing, only seeing. And the moment you see clearly, you let go, not out of force, not out of discipline, but because truth has no weight and illusions fall away on their own. You let go of the need to be understood because you understand yourself. You let go of the need to revisit every wound because you've realized the wound is not you. It was only the doorway through which you would eventually remember your wholeness. You let go of needing the world to affirm you because the divine already has. You let go of needing the story to make sense because peace is not found in understanding, it is found in surrender. And in that surrender, you begin to remember a different kind of history, not one of pain and survival, but of truth and eternity. You begin to remember the part of you that was never born and will never die, the part that watched you stumble with compassion, never judgment, the part that waited for you to awaken without urgency, without blame. Because time is not a threat to the soul. It does not rush, it does not regret. It simply unfolds perfectly, purposefully, until even your mistakes become sacred milestones on the way back to yourself. Every soul arrives here cloaked in a dream, and the dream feels real. We are born into a world of names and roles and rules, and somewhere along the way we forget the vastness we came from. We forget that we are not the name they gave us, not the grades we earned, not the approval we chased. We forget that our value was written long before any of that. And so we start collecting titles, identities, wounds, moments of praise and shame, little victories, quiet heartbreaks, and before long, we start mistaking that collection for who we are. But none of it is you. You are not the mask. You are not the armor. You are the light behind the eyes, the breath beneath the thought, the space between every word. You are the formless awareness that was present before the story began, and that will remain long after it ends. To give up your personal history is not to erase your past, but to transcend it. It is to rise above the timeline and remember that you are not the actor, you are the sky where the play unfolds. You are the one who has always watched, always witnessed, always known, even in your most lost moments. A deeper part of you never wavered. It waited. It whispered. It loved you through every illusion you clung to. And when you were ready, it called you home. That call may come in a moment of stillness or in the chaos of grief. It may come in a hospital bed, a heartbreak, a sunrise, or a silence so deep it rattles the bones of your identity. But when it comes, you will know, because it doesn't come from fear. It comes from truth. And truth doesn't shout, it resonates. It moves through you like a memory you never knew you had. A memory of freedom, of weightlessness, of peace that asks for nothing. And in that moment, you don't need to fix anything. You don't need to prove anything. You simply remember that none of the story was ever who you are. And with that remembering comes power. Real power. The kind that doesn't need to control because it already is. The kind that doesn't need to resist because it flows. The kind that doesn't need to speak loudly because it vibrates through every cell of your being. That power is the light of your soul reclaiming its place at the center of your life. So let it in. Let it burn away the layers. Let it dissolve the labels. Let it lift the veil of who you thought you had to be. You are not here to maintain a narrative. You are here to awaken from it. You are not here to repeat the story of your pain. You are here to rewrite reality with the ink of your presence. And presence begins the moment you stop dragging the past behind you like a shadow and start walking as the light you've always been. When you begin to live without dragging your history into every moment, something extraordinary begins to occur. You stop reacting and you start responding. You stop defending and you start allowing. You stop blaming and you begin blessing even the most painful chapters, not because they were just, but because they led you here to this holy recognition of who you are. You begin to see your past not as a prison, but as a teacher, a sacred curriculum written by your soul for one purpose, awakening. Every heartbreak carved space for more compassion. Every rejection redirected you toward alignment. Every delay protected you from what you couldn't yet understand. And now that you can see it clearly, you no longer curse the path, you bow to it. This is not passive, this is not resignation, this is divine participation with the unfolding of your life. You move with it now instead of against it. You surrender, not as a form of defeat, but as an act of power. Because only a truly free being can say, I no longer need the story to be different in order to be whole. Only one who has touched the eternal within can say, I release the need to edit my past because I no longer live in it. And with that, the great unraveling begins. The old timelines dissolve. The characters that haunted you fade into light. You no longer carry the ghost of your younger self into your relationships, into your choices, into your self-concept. You do not introduce yourself with a list of past sorrows. You walk into each new moment with nothing to prove and everything to offer. Can you imagine the peace of that kind of being? Can you feel the relief of no longer having to convince anyone, not even yourself, that you are worthy, lovable, safe, and free? That is the invitation of now. That is the gift of letting go. Because when you give up your personal history, you give up the idea that your story was ever more real than your soul. You trade the weight of memory for the weightlessness of being. You begin to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. And that changes everything. It changes how you speak, your words become medicine. It changes how you listen, your presence becomes a sanctuary. It changes how you move, not with haste, but with grace. Not with striving, but with trust. And in that trust, you feel the arms of the universe holding you. You recognize that you were never navigating this path alone. You were being led, guided, whispered to in 1,000 invisible ways, even when you felt abandoned, even when the road seemed dark. And now you can look back and say with reverence, even in the silence, I was being sung to. And when you finally say yes fully, without resistance, without the temptation to look back and explain yourself again, something ancient in you exhales. It's the part of you that never wanted to wear the armor. never felt at home behind the masks, never resonated with the noise of trying to become something in a world that forgot how to simply be. That part, your soul has always been waiting for you to drop the script. It has never needed the applause. It only ever needed your permission. Permission to step forward without dragging the whole story with it. Permission to let love speak louder than memory. Permission to move through this life not defined by what happened to you, but defined by what is true within you. And what is true within you is not wounded. It is not bitter. It is not broken. It is brilliant, boundless, breathtaking in its silence, and it begins to speak in the absence of noise. When you no longer speak from pain, you begin to speak from power, not a power that dominates, but one that liberates, a presence that reminds others of their own freedom just by standing still. Because the greatest healing you can ever offer this world is the fullness of your presence free from the past. That's how you become a healer, not by fixing, not by saving, but by being. By embodying the truth that you are already whole, already loved, already divine, and from that space, everything else is just grace in motion. Now you walk into the room, and you don't need the story to precede you. You let your energy arrive instead. You let your kindness speak. You let your stillness hold space. And it is enough, more than enough. It is everything, because that is the truth of who you are. Without the history, without the narrative, without the script, you are light walking in form. You are love remembering itself. You are the breath of the divine made visible. And so, beloved one, give up your personal history, not to forget who you were, but to finally remember who you are. Give it up like a weight placed at the feet of the eternal. Give it up like an offering, not with sorrow, but with reverence. Let it go the way a tree lets go of its leaves, not in despair, but in trust that something new is always waiting to rise. This is the moment. This is your now. And now is not a reflection of your past, it is a portal into your truth. Step through it, step free, step whole. So let the old story fall behind you like dust. Let it scatter into the silence that gave it form. Let every version of you that once needed it rest now honored but no longer held. You do not abandon your past by letting it go. You transmute it, you sanctify it, you turn every scar into sky. And when the sky is clear, you can finally see the light that was never gone, only hidden behind the clouds of memory. And when that light returns, or rather when you return to it, you begin to walk differently. You speak as one who has no debt to yesterday. You breathe as one who has nothing to prove. You offer your heart not as a resume of pain, but as a field of peace. You become the still point in a spinning world, not because you escaped your history, but because you stepped outside of it. You chose presence over performance. You chose truth over trauma. You chose to live as though now is holy because it is. And the world feels that. It responds. It softens. The universe begins to bend in the direction of your surrender, because now you're no longer resisting what is. Now you are allowing life to live you. And that is where miracles begin. That is where healing flows. That is where love becomes not something you seek, but something you are. So take one final breath as the one who carried it all. And as you exhale, let it fall. Let the story return to the wind. Let the weight roll off your shoulders. Let the identity you wore like armor become ash. You don't need it anymore. You never did. What remains is truth. What remains is love. What remains is you naked, luminous, divine. This is not an ending. This is a homecoming. You are free now. You always were. You are not the events that have unfolded in your past. You are not the bruises left behind by someone else's misunderstanding of love. You are not the echoes of pain, nor the lingering fear dressed up as memory. The pain happened, yes, but the suffering, that's a choice your soul no longer needs to make. Pain is a signal. Suffering is a story. And you, my friend, are the author of that story. You can put down the pen. You can stop circling the same sentence. You can choose to no longer reread the pages that made you weep. Because while pain is part of the human journey, suffering is a loop created by the ego, fed by identification with what was instead of presence in what is. We live in a world where hurt seems inevitable, but that is only because we confuse what happened to the body, to the circumstances, to the mind with who we are. But the soul does not bleed. The soul does not break. The soul does not suffer unless you tell it to. There is a space inside you, wide as the sky, still as the ocean before the wind, that has never been harmed. And the moment you return to that place, the moment you remember that your essence is untouched by all that has occurred, the chains of suffering begin to loosen. You see, the ego thrives on attachment. It builds monuments out of wounds. It decorates its walls with the past, then sits you down in the middle and calls it truth. But truth is not found in the stories you replay. Truth is found in the awareness that watches them silently, without judgment, without pain. Pain knocks at the door, but suffering is when you let it move in. You feed it, you dress it up, you give it your name, and suddenly the experience becomes an identity. But you were never meant to be the experience. You were meant to witness it, rise from it, grow through it, and let it go. The flower does not mourn the storm. It simply drinks the rain and blooms again. You too are designed to bloom after the breaking. You too are wired for healing, for rising, for returning to the light. But first, you must release the grip. You must stop clutching the pain as if it defines you. Because the longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes, and the more you forget how light your soul truly is. There is no shame in being hurt. There is no weakness in having been wounded. But there is great power, holy, radiant power, in saying, this happened, and I choose to stop carrying it. This broke me open, and I choose not to suffer anymore. Not because the pain didn't matter, but because I matter more. We live in the echo chamber of our own minds, repeating thoughts as if they are commandments, when they are only invitations. You are invited every day to pick up thoughts of peace instead of pain. You are invited to say no thank you to the voice that insists you must suffer because you once hurt. You are invited to stop sitting in the courtroom of your past and start walking in the garden of your present. Do you remember what freedom feels like? It is not the absence of pain. It is the absence of identification with it. It is the knowing that though your hands may tremble and your voice may crack, your spirit is unshaken. That though your eyes have wept rivers, your soul is still the sun rising over them. Let me tell you something your heart already knows. You have everything you need to be free right now. The gate is open. The key was never lost. You only needed to remember that the pain is not your home. Pain is an event. Suffering is a dwelling. And you have lived in that dwelling far too long. Move out, find the stillness, sit in silence, and listen not to the noise of old narratives, but to the soft whisper of truth. You are not broken. You are becoming. The human experience is filled with contrast, joy and sorrow, light and shadow, comfort and discomfort. But none of these are permanent. They pass through you like the seasons. And suffering is what happens when you try to stop the season from changing. When you say, no, let winter stay forever, even when spring is knocking, you don't need to fight what happened. You only need to stop resisting what is. Acceptance is not surrender. It is the first step to reclaiming your power. Because the moment you say, yes, this happened, but it does not define me, you reclaim the throne of your being. You stop serving the past. You start serving peace. And peace, my dear, is always available. It's not earned through punishment. It's not achieved through reliving your wounds. It's not won by proving your suffering was real. Peace comes when you say, I have suffered long enough. I have paid the price in tears, in tension, in the years I could not feel the sun. And now I choose light. You can drop the weight You can drop the narrative. You can choose to carry only the lesson, not the scar. Forgiveness is not just for others. It is a balm for your own heart. It is saying to yourself, I love you enough to let you breathe again. I love you enough to stop punishing you for something you couldn't control. I love you enough to allow you joy. And that is the beginning of true healing. Not fixing the past, but releasing it. Not changing the memory, but changing your relationship to it. Not waiting for an apology, but giving yourself permission to rise. You are not your pain. You are not your grief. You are not your story. You are the still awareness behind it all. The ocean that holds the wave. The sky that holds the storm. When you remember this, when you embody this, the suffering begins to dissolve. Not because life becomes easier, but because you stop adding weight to what is already heavy. You stop dragging the chain and start walking free. Even now, as these words meet your ears, something inside you remembers. A softness, a silence, a space untouched by trauma. This is your true nature. This is your home. Return to it. There comes a moment in your inner evolution where you look in the mirror not to see your face, but to meet your awareness. To recognize that the reflection staring back is not the entirety of who you are. Beneath the surface of the physical, beyond the drama of the emotional, deeper than the noise of your thoughts, lives the still and spacious presence of your soul, and it has never been hurt. The body remembers, the mind repeats, but the soul observes in silence, untouched by all of it. You are not the memory, you are the one remembering. You are not the pain, you are the witness of the pain. And in that sacred awareness, all suffering begins to soften. Suffering only survives in resistance. It needs your agreement, it needs your participation, it needs your attention to grow, but once you stop watering it, it withers. Once you say, I no longer need this story to feel real, you begin to exit the prison of identification and step into the open air of presence. Do you realize how many years of joy we delay, hoping for a better yesterday? How many mornings we waste because we're still reliving an old night? And yet, the present moment, this very breath, has never left us. It sits patiently, offering peace in exchange for surrender. Not surrender to the pain, but surrender of the need to make it personal. When we suffer, it's not the pain itself that crushes us, it's the meaning we assign. It's the belief that it was unfair, that it shouldn't have happened, that it took something from us that we can never get back. And yes, it's true, things happen that pierce the soul, that bring us to our knees, that change the shape of our lives. But it is also true that no event, no matter how deep the wound, can alter your divine identity. You are not here to carry burdens forever. You are not here to relive every wrong. You are not here to be the keeper of anguish. You are here to awaken. You are here to remember. You are here to be free. And freedom does not come when everything is resolved. Freedom comes when you stop needing everything to be resolved. The great paradox of healing is that it does not require forgetting what happened. It only requires releasing your grip on it. Holding on is not proof of strength. It's a misunderstanding of where your power comes from. Your power was never in remembering how you were hurt. It's in remembering that the hurt cannot touch your essence. A storm can bend the branches, but it cannot uproot the sky. And you, dear soul, are more sky than tree. You are the spaciousness in which the pain passed through, not the pain itself. And here is the most freeing realization of all. It was never your job to suffer. It was never your duty to carry the weight of other people's actions. It was never your purpose to punish yourself for being human, for having feelings, for needing love, for not knowing then what you know now. Let go of the should-haves. Let go of the why me. Let go of the questions that circle but never land. The universe does not demand explanations. It only invites evolution. You did not fail because you were hurt. You are not broken because you still feel. You are simply unfolding, growing, cracking open into something wiser, something kinder, something lighter. And lightness does not mean forgetting. It means remembering who you are beyond what happened. It means finally telling yourself, I've heard enough. It's time to live again. There is a sacred space within you that has not aged, not changed, not been stained by anything you've endured. This space is your truth. It is always calm, always open, always whole. And every time you choose not to suffer, even in the smallest of ways, you come closer to that space. Every time you breathe instead of judge, release instead of relive, observe instead of attach, you come home. Do you see now? The pain already happened. There is no undoing it. But there is something greater. There is outgrowing it. There is rising from it. There is transmuting it into something that no longer poisons your heart. Yes, the memories are still there, but so is the witness. And the witness, the real, you knows that peace is not something you earn by punishing yourself. Peace is what you receive when you choose to stop fighting what already ended. Stop defending your suffering. Stop building shrines to your scars. Stop believing that your pain is the most interesting thing about you. There is a vastness in you waiting to be known. There is joy in you waiting to be reclaimed. There is purpose in you that has nothing to do with what broke you. This moment, this very breath is asking, will you let go? Will you let the past walk away without chasing it? Will you set down the heavy armor you no longer need? You may not know what comes next. You may not have all the answers, but you can choose peace anyway. Peace is not a product of understanding. Peace is a product of acceptance. And acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean saying what happened was right. It means saying, I will not allow it to shape my life one moment longer. That is not weakness. That is awakening. Let yourself weep, yes. Let yourself feel what was never felt. Let the grief rise, not so you can suffer, but so it can finally move through. The body holds pain until we're ready to release it. Let the tears fall, but then let the tears dry and walk forward. Not away from what happened, but toward who you truly are. Forgiveness does not mean the past is erased. It means you are no longer willing to suffer in its shadow. It means you have chosen your soul's freedom over your mind's righteousness. It means you no longer need to prove you were wronged in order to prove that you are worthy of healing. And you are worthy, not because of what you've endured, but because of who you've always been beneath it all. Right now, in this very instant, you are being called into remembrance, not of your wounds, but of your wholeness, not of your failures, but of your eternal nature, not of your identity as the victim, but as the conscious presence who cannot be victimized. The ego will scream. It will beg you to hold on, to stay loyal to the pain, to keep circling the same story. But you are not the ego. You are the awareness that watches it spin. And in that awareness, there is the power to choose again. There is a kind of liberation that doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or fireworks. It arrives in the quiet moments when you finally stop asking why and start whispering thank you. Not because the pain was good, but because it awakened something inside you that was asleep. Because it brought you to the edge where you could no longer pretend, and in that still place, you finally remembered the truth. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become now. The suffering ends when the identification ends, and identification is nothing more than a habit of attaching to thoughts that don't serve you, a habit of believing the emotions without questioning their source, a habit of clinging to a version of yourself that no longer exists. But habits are not who you are. They are just choices repeated. They are just grooves in the mind, and grooves can be smoothed. Patterns can be undone. The brain rewires, the nervous system relaxes, the identity untangles the moment you say, this does not belong to me anymore. You may feel afraid to let go. There is strange safety in suffering, a false sense of control, a familiarity in pain. But healing asks you to step into the unknown, to loosen your grip on the drama that defined you, to say goodbye to the identity built from wounds, and walk into the light of who you've always been before the story, beyond the scars. Can you feel it? That quiet voice rising inside saying, there's more to you than this. That voice is real. It is sacred. It is the soul reminding you of your vastness, your strength, your divinity, and it will wait as long as you need, but it will never stop calling. You do not need to be fixed. You only need to be remembered. Not by others, by yourself. Remember the softness you buried, the innocence you silenced, the laughter you postponed. Remember what it felt like before the pain taught you to armor your heart. That place still exists. It is not gone. It is not broken. It is simply waiting beneath the rubble of your resistance. And the resistance is not you. It's just fear dressed in logic. It's the voice that says, if I let go, I'll be weak. But letting go is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of strength. Anyone can carry pain. But to release it, to truly open your hands and say, no more, that requires a courage the world cannot measure. The world may not understand your healing. It may still ask you to explain. It may still define you by what happened. But your soul is not here to be understood by those still asleep. Your soul is here to awaken and to shine so brightly that others remember how to wake as well. You are not the emotion. You are the space it moves through. You are not the thought. You are the stillness that watches. And suffering fades when you stop mistaking the weather for the sky. This breath right now is a chance to come home, not to the old identity, but to the open field of awareness where nothing needs to be solved and everything is already whole. How long will you delay your peace, waiting for the past to apologize? How long will you postpone joy, hoping someone else will finally see your pain and make it right? The truth is, they may never understand. They may never say the words you long to hear. But your healing does not depend on their awakening. It depends on yours. You can choose to forgive without permission. You can choose to let go without closure. You can choose to stop suffering even if the world continues spinning in ignorance. Because you are not here to win a courtroom battle. You are here to live, to be free, to love without condition, to release the anchors and fly. And yes, part of you will resist this. Part of you has grown so familiar with the story that it feels like a second skin. But you are not here to live a life of repetition. You are here for transformation. You were not created to carry pain forever. You were created to awaken through it, to become a vessel for compassion, to become a lighthouse for others still caught in the storm. There is no nobility in suffering. The soul does not evolve through punishment. It evolves through presence, through surrender, through the decision, again and again, to choose love over fear, even when the fear seems justified. You will feel the temptation to revisit the pain. The mind will want to dissect it, to solve it, to find meaning in the chaos. But meaning is not found in the mind. Meaning is what the soul creates when the mind becomes silent. Can you sit in silence? Not in avoidance, but in reverence? Can you feel what you've been avoiding? Can you let it rise? Not to attach to it, but to finally witness it without judgment? That is where healing begins. Not in fixing, but in seeing clearly. Not in resisting, but in allowing. Not in blaming, but in blessing. Bless it all. Not because it was right, but because it brought you here. Because it cracked the shell around your heart and allowed the light to pour in. Because it reminded you that even in the darkest hour, something in you remained unshaken. That something is your eternal self. The part of you untouched by pain. The part of you that has watched lifetimes come and go. The part of you that is pure awareness, infinite, formless, serene. And when you live from that space, the suffering has no foothold. It cannot anchor into stillness. It cannot grasp what is not grasping. It cannot survive in the presence of truth. The truth is this: you are free right now. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to wait. The gate is open. You simply need to walk through. Let the memories be just that, memories. Let the pain be a teacher, not a tenant. Let the suffering dissolve in the silence that holds no resistance. This is not a destination. It is a return, a remembrance, a homecoming to the soul that never left you, even when you turned away. You are the light beneath the wound. You are the peace beneath the thought. You are the presence beneath the noise. And the moment you stop looking for healing and become the space in which healing happens, everything changes. There comes a holy moment, quiet and unannounced, when you no longer seek to be rescued from your past because you realize you were never truly trapped by it. The door was always open. The chains were always imagined. And the only captor was your belief that you had to keep suffering in order to honor what you had been through. But you don't honor pain by holding it. You honor pain by freeing yourself from it. You don't need to suffer to prove you've been hurt. You don't need to wear the memory as armor. You don't need to explain to anyone why you are ready to be free. It is enough that your soul is ready. Let this be the moment you stop rehearsing the story. Let this be the breath that no longer carries resistance. Let this be the second you say, I forgive myself, I forgive them, I release the grip, I surrender the fight. And then just rest. Don't reach, don't strive, don't try to force a spiritual awakening out of the rubble. Just be still long enough to feel the light that never left. Rest in it, float in it, let it hold you. This is where transformation happens. Not by force, not by effort, but by resting in your true self. The part of you that does not need healing because it was never hurt. That is the great paradox of healing. You begin by thinking you are shattered. You work, you cry, you climb. And one day, through grace or surrender or silence, you realize there was nothing to fix, nothing to put back together. You were whole all along. You just forgot. You are not broken. You are not fragile. You are not your lowest day. You are not the echo of someone else's behavior. You are not the failure you feared. You are not the child who didn't know how to protect themselves. You are not the adult who carried shame like a shield. You are divine presence. You are eternal stillness. You are the sky that witnessed it all and remained unscathed. Can you feel it now? The breath flowing in and out without judgment, the heart beating without apology, the stillness beneath every thought, waiting like an open palm. This is grace. This is your nature. This is what suffering tried to cover, but never could destroy. There is no enlightenment in punishment, no salvation in shame. There is only this: remembering, returning, releasing. And you can do that now. Not later, not when the world is safer, or your mind is quieter, or they finally say they're sorry. You can return now because the path home was never outside you. The pain happened, yes. And some of it cut deep. Some of it left you breathless. Some of it made you doubt the goodness of the world. But look at you now. Look how much you still care. How much you still long to grow. How much light still leaks through the cracks you thought would consume you. That light is your proof. Proof that the soul cannot be extinguished. Proof that your essence is stronger than your story. Proof that even when the mind screams in pain, the spirit whispers peace. You do not need to become someone new. You only need to become who you were before the world convinced you to suffer. Let go of the label, let go of the guilt, let go of the need to carry every hurt as if it were sacred. The sacredness is not in the wound. The sacredness is in your becoming. Yes, you've known darkness. Yes, you've tasted bitterness. But bitterness is not your home. Grief is not your identity. The soul cannot be defined by what it survives. If you need a mantra to carry forward, let it be this: I am no longer willing to suffer. I release the need to be at war with what was. I choose peace, not because it is easy, but because it is who I am. And repeat it. Not just with your voice, but with your breath, your posture, your presence. Say it when the memory resurfaces. Say it when the body tenses. Say it when the ego tries to seduce you back into its narrative. I am no longer willing to suffer. I choose peace. I choose peace. I choose peace. And each time you say it, something old falls away. Each time you say it, something sacred is remembered. Each time you say it, the past becomes lighter until one day it is no longer a weight but a whisper, a chapter, a part of the journey, not the definition of it. This is the gift of awareness. This is the gift of awakening. Not that pain disappears, but that suffering does. Not that you forget, but that you remember more deeply who you truly are. And who you are is not fragile. You are light, embodied. You are love, remembering. You are wholeness, reawakened. You are here, alive, awake, and ready to stop surviving and start living. Ready to stop circling and start soaring. Ready to stop suffering and start simply being. Because the pain happened, yes. But the suffering, that ends now.